And we're back here on 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO, mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. And we have Eddie McBride on the phone, the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce here in Lubbock. Eddie, how's it going?
Matt, doing great. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate you and Dave letting me come and talk to you guys amidst all this COVID-19 pandemic. So nice to have a chance to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, hey, I just wanted to say, Eddie, I'm thrilled to have you on this morning. I think there's, as I've said before, you're probably the person who has their finger on the pulse of Lubbock business, and this is one of the things I am most concerned about, is Lubbock business and how they're faring from being closed and now for so long and now reopening. And I'm anxious to hear your take on the recovery and some of your thoughts.
Well, I think all in all, this particular reopening, led by the governor, supported by the mayor, and that's Lubbock Economic Recovery Task Force, I think they're doing what the government has allowed them to do with the opening. The 25% occupancy in some businesses probably works okay. Some restaurants, the larger restaurants, that'll work better. Some of the smaller restaurants, obviously, the overhead costs more than they can really afford to open up. So a lot of the restaurants have continued to curbside and takeout, which, believe me, some of the restaurants are doing a wonderful job. What a creative way for some of the responses that they've had. And I think the Lubbock community has done a great job at supporting, obviously, our restaurants during this time as well. We could always do better, but the fact of the matter is, I think, from that perspective.
I'll tell you one of my observations, Eddie, in closing these restaurants. Number one, if a restaurant had a drive-through window, they're doing land office business. And number two, I was amazed at how many people eat out in this town.
Yeah, and not only eat out, but it's just like it seems like every time I've gone, and the many stories that I've heard, there's always been a friendly interaction. Folks are doing what is necessary to protect themselves in accordance with the Lubbock Safe guidelines, which I think were very well established. And I think all in all that restaurants, I wish we could have gone to 50% occupancy. That's what we were looking at recommending. But the governor wanted to have a little bit more of a stair-step approach, I guess. But nonetheless, he opened up personal services. That's the ones we were also very worried about. And last Friday, they were able to open their doors. Some, a bunch of them have opened. There are some that obviously still, for various reasons, can't meet all the guidelines or aren't prepared to open yet. But nonetheless, we're really happy that a lot of those independent operators and those folks that support so many business people are able to open. But retail, I haven't heard a lot, to be honest with you. I've heard some folks are doing okay. Some folks are doing just barely. But the fact of the matter is, I think as more and more people feel more comfortable going out and shopping, I think that's going to be part of the next part of the equation is more people feeling comfortable to go into. Now, there's a lot of people that already do, mind you, but I think there's probably going to be more opportunity for folks to get out and shopping and do more business in retail. Yeah. Really looking forward to seeing what happens with the governor's announcement on the 18th.
Tell me, Eddie, do you have a sense of what Lubbock is going to look like a year from now?
If anybody tells you that they have a sense of what Lubbock looks like in a year, they're guessing. And I know that there's some potential. I know that we should have a pretty good, I'm not going to say a boom, but I am going to say I can't help but think that there's going to be some better days ahead from what they are now. My God, that's easy to say. But I cannot help but it'll take a while for the recovery to really work out all the kinks that were caused by this pandemic during this time frame. Yeah. So a year from now, I think we'll do better. I still think we'll have we'll still be having recovery issues as far as folks getting back to work. That's why we've created this in this Lubbock LBK website portal for job seekers to look for job providers and vice versa. And we also have a great list of PPE resources in the community on that. So I think it's going to be work connecting job seekers and job providers for the long term, because we're not going to be completely open for quite some time. So there's going to be a lot of folks that are still looking for jobs, and unemployment's still going to be a problem through at least through the end of the year, and starting, I think, better to recover after the first of the year. But it all depends on exactly when our next steps at opening are going to be. As far as this, we began the beginning. Now we need to see what the next round is going to do.
So, Eddie, let me ask you this: how has the stimulus that the government put out, the PPP loan, as well as I guess the small business loan, how has that helped small businesses in Lubbock?
The small businesses that have gotten it, it was a godsend for most of them. The problem is the 8 weeks, and then that's not, I mean, for a lot of the folks, 8 weeks is just going to be a patchwork. They're still going to have trouble generating enough revenue to cover their continued cost. So the 8 week period, it was kind of, for those who were able to get it, which there were quite a few, and the ones who didn't get it, they continue to look for more stimulus funding for more support, because there's a lot of people that, Matt, didn't get any of the money. Yeah. And so one of the problems is going to be trying to bridge that gap between the 8 weeks of the money that they did get. I mean, like restaurants weren't even able to open at least inside dining till last week. And you know good and well, although curbside and takeout has been good for many restaurants, other restaurants derive a majority of their income on 100% inside dining. So those folks who got the stimulus that aren't going to be able to open fully, that aren't going to be able to generate the revenue to cover all the costs, they're going to be beyond that 8 week period of what the money was good for.
And Eddie, one of the things I noticed was that a lot of restaurants, even though they can open up to 25%, they're not reopening the dining room right now. A lot of people believe it's because at 25% dining room capacity, it's not worth hiring the people to cover the dining room.
Absolutely, and that's that overhead I was talking about a moment ago. It would actually cost more to open it up to serve, 1/4 of the occupancy. Now, thank goodness the governor, for those restaurants that do have outdoor dining, that's all you got to do is social distance. There's no occupancy requirement for that. So some folks are getting pretty creative, and I've heard folks who are even, I haven't seen it, but people who are setting up outside. I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it personally.
Hey, take half your parking lot, turn it into a dining room. You'll be good shape.
There you go. Yeah, there
you can't have as many people anyway, so you don't need half your parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think all in all, the various the essential businesses, have continued. I know a lot of folks who have started going to the office. There was a little bit of confusion for us in the office world, is that the fact the governor first said that if you have an individual office, you can go to work. And now, obviously, there's not till the 18th of May in the new governor's declaration does it say that offices can go back with 25% of their workforce or 5 people, whichever that number fits. So that's kind of confusing.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. This is News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO, and we are talking to Eddie McBride, the president and CEO of Lubbock Chamber of Commerce. And Dave, did you have a question for Eddie right before the break?
Well, I'm just curious, Eddie, of what's going on with the chamber. I'm sure you guys have a lot of plans, a lot of events that the chamber schedules, and I guess many, or if not all of those, are just up in the air right now.
Yeah, most of the stuff that we had planned, we're not canceling anything. We're just postponing. For example, the National Day of Prayer that we were supposed to do last week, we participated now in quite a few prayer events virtually, and last week participated in the Steve Haynes and Dalton Jansen. We participated with them in a day-long virtual prayer event last week. So we'll put that off. We'll have a community prayer gathering to celebrate the return of whatever normalcy looks like after this COVID when we can. But most of the time, the virtual webinars have been pretty significant. We have one this morning at 10 o'clock with Chancellor Ted Mitchell talking about what's beyond coronavirus, both with the university, is the system, as well as the state of medical and healthcare in America. So really excited to hear Dr. Mitchell, and that's our 5th virtual webinar that's been focused toward healthcare in general. We had 5 weeks ago, we had a lawyer that was involved in the repeal of the ACA, of the Obamacare. He spoke about what the current status is and going forward. with repeal of Obamacare, and that was great information to share with folks. And then the week after that, we talked about the high cost of prescription drugs, and then we talked about, obviously, what more resources were going to be made available with the Administration for Health Retirement Accounts. And then last week we talked about association health plans.
Is this something that the citizens can join in on?
Absolutely, yes, sir. lubbockchamber.com on our website, and there was a news release set out. The station should have it, I hope, and at 10 o'clock this morning, and there's still room for folks to sign up, register, and get on there, because I know Mitchell will do a good job, and really looking forward to having him speak. But those are that's the new wave, having the opportunity to meet, not necessarily in person, but to share information via any means, and Zoom meetings have been a great tool.
Yeah, in fact, Eddie, I have I've learned how to use Zoom now, but I have a doctor's appointment this morning at 11, and we're going to do it. We're going to conduct it over the computer.
Isn't that amazing? Because I think, again, telemedicine is one of the things Dr. Mitchell's going to be talking about today as well. And tech has been really involved in that. And so I think our whole lives have changed, obviously, while this stay-at-home and quarantine has been going on. But workarounds, and just like what we talked about both with retails and restaurants and essential businesses learning how to work in the middle of it, we, too, at the Chamber are going to be changing some of the things that we do from a community development perspective in that respect. We've been very concentrated on making sure resources and information is available through our website, our lubbockchamber.com COVID resources and information page. And one example on our In This Together LBK, we posted that a couple of weeks ago on a Wednesday. That next morning, I got a phone call from a guy saying, "Thank you very much for posting his business on there." He sold 1,000 masks almost immediately after us posting that on that website. So that's the kind of stuff that we can do to connect people and make sure that folks know about what their businesses have to offer and take advantage of.
Eddie, we have to take another quick break, but after the break, I'm going to ask you about the importance of shielding these businesses from lawsuits from COVID-19. I know that's something I think the lawyers are foaming at the bits, foaming at the mouth, just waiting to get a chance to start suing businesses that might have money, and the businesses are scared to death about it. And so we'll get your response after this break. This is News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO. We're going to go right to the phones with Eddie McBride, the president and CEO of Lubbock Chamber of Commerce. Eddie, as I was saying beforehand, how important is it that we get the protection for the small businesses as far as lawsuits from COVID-19?
Well, Matt, I think it's a wonderful question. That's one of the things from an advocacy point of view that we're working at now, especially with the U.S. Chamber, who has such great resources to fight against the opportunity for a bunch of suits that are drawn against business people, both essential businesses as well as those of us who are reopening, for following the rules, following the CDC, the state rules, and the local rules, and still having the opportunity to get sued by an employee who either gets sick as coming back to work, or having some of the problems about folks coming back to not wanting to come back to work and that type of stuff. So,
and many businesses are going up and above.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They're doing everything they can to help, number one, their employees get back to work, but two, generate revenue for their business. So, and according to a lot of polls, 82% of Americans, I think it was the U.S. Chamber Institute for Legal Reform poll, 82% of Americans agree that when restaurant stores and other businesses are allowed to open, they should not be sued by people who claim they contracted the virus at that place of business unless the business was grossly negligent. So I think those words are very important, because small businesses are doing their best to protect their employees and give them a paycheck at the same time. So I think those issues are doing very well, and I think there's a whole bunch of people that are trying to help small business in that arena.
Yeah, and it seems like, Eddie, no matter how much you try, it would be totally impossible to prevent someone from contracting the disease.
Yeah, and that's where I think the Lubbock Economic Recovery Task Force, on behalf of the city of Lubbock, did a great job with their guidelines, because they have over 600 companies that have already signed up to be Lubbock certified, Lubbock Safe certified. And I think that's, again, some of the stuff of that is above and beyond what those minimum guidelines are to protect both their employees and their customers.
Okay.
And so I really applaud them for doing that.
Eddie, we have less than a minute. Would you tell people how to get in touch with the Chamber of Commerce if they have any more questions?
LubbockChamber.com is our main website, and that's where you can go to the COVID-19 resources page. And then in this together, LBK.com is where you can find a bunch of small business resources, PPE resources, and job seekers looking for job providers. So, and 761-7000. We won't be open for a while, but 761-7000, call us.
All right. Eddie, thank you so much for coming on. Eddie McBride, the President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. We will be back after these messages on News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM, KFYO.